All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Leeds Community Foundation and Give Bradford Open Grants Briefing. I'm Shahid Molvi. I'm Head of Grants, which basically means that I oversee the grant-making function at the foundation alongside the grants team, who I'll introduce in a minute. So before we get going, I just wanted to say that the session is being recorded for people who can't make the session today, obviously. And hopefully people are okay with that. If not, feel free to turn off your camera. If you could also keep yourselves or your microphones on mute for now, unless you're asking a question, and you'll get an opportunity to do that at the end of the presentation anyway. So I'd like to introduce you to the grants team who will be talking through the various programs that are coming up or open at the moment. So maybe I'll start with Maria, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Maria Spadafora, one of the grants officers.
And Lydia.
Morning everyone, I'm Lydia Baldwin, also one of the grants officers.
Alex.
Hi everyone, I'm Alex Kupis. I'm Senior Grants Officer.
And I think Anna's on the call as well, right? Not a grant officer, but important.
Hi. Hi, I'm Anna Morgan. I'm the Grants Administrator.
Okay. And I think Rachel, do you want to introduce yourself? I know you're in the background, but.
Yeah, morning everyone. I'm Rachel. I'm the Events and Comms Officer.
Okay, so let's move on to the agenda for the day. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the foundation itself, then talk a little bit about the application process, how that works, go through some of our standard grant criteria for all our programs, how we make decisions, the panel process, and then a little bit around the reporting, evaluation and learning, which is an important aspect for us. And then onto the important bit, which is the open and upcoming grant programs, which the grant officers will talk through. And then, like I said, you'll have an opportunity at the end to ask any questions. But if you do have questions during the presentation, do feel free to pop that in the chat, and then one of the team hopefully will be able to pick that up and answer as we're going through as well. Okay, next slide. Okay, so a little bit about Leeds Community Foundation and Give Bradford. So Leeds Community Foundation is one of 47 community foundations across the UK, which is affiliated to the UK-wide UKCF, which is a foundation of a network of community foundations right across the UK, including Scotland and Wales as well. Together, the foundations since inception have made around £1 billion worth of grants. And combined, the Community Foundation Network is the 4th largest grant maker in the UK. And then coming back to the region, so Leeds Community Foundation and Give Bradford, we distributed just short of £6 million to community organisations in the last financial year up to March 2021. And that makes us the largest independent grant maker in the region as well. Next slide. And moving on a little bit about the application process. Move on again. Okay, so it's going to be important that you read through the full guidance for the fund that you're applying for before completing your online application form. This is, you'll find the full details of that available on our website, together with how the application process works as well. And it's really important because each fund has a slightly different focus, and the eligibility requirements might be slightly different as well on each one. And so obviously, please tell us, what you need to tell us, and don't assume we know things without you telling us. So that's when you get on to completing the application form, don't assume we know things if you don't put it on the form. There are word limits on some of the questions. You'll notice that, you can only go up to 250 or 500 words, but these are kind of maximum limits, not the kind of minimum amount that we expect you to write. And you don't need to complete the application form in one sitting either. You can kind of save drafts, come back to it before you're happy with it, and then click submit when you've read through and you're completely okay with the form. And then once the form is with us and it arrives in our inbox, we'll acknowledge receipt of it, and then we'll do the assessment. One of the grant officers will do the assessments, and then the application, if it's shortlisted, will then go to the panel for decision, and then you'll hear back on the outcome or get feedback on it at a later date. Next slide. So these are just the standard grant criteria that we have for all our programs. So this is kind of like the minimum standard or the minimum eligibility that we expect for most of our programs. So in order to apply to the foundation, you have to obviously be a non-profit organization or social enterprise and have at least, you know, some of these things in place. So at least 3 trustees, directors on your management committee who are independent and unrelated. And there's also this issue around significant control, which you know, we don't expect any of those people to have more than 50% control of the organization or decision making or power to remove directors or voting, that kind of thing. And then a governing document is required as well. I don't know what's going on here. A governing document is so a governing document is also required. So that's like the rules of your organization, the constitution, the memorandum and articles of association, which shows how your group is managed, how the decisions are being made, who's the members, etc. And then please do ensure that you check eligibility in terms of incorporation and registration status on the criteria document for the fund, because some funds we have, you know, might be restricted to just charities applying, or you have to be incorporated to apply, or, you know, you have to have a particular level of turnover, for example. Okay, and a bank or building society account in the name of the organization with a minimum of 2 unrelated check signatories, that's a requirement as well. And then obviously in terms of the finances, we usually ask for the last 12 months worth of account, or if you don't have that, a record of income and expenditure for your group. That's to kind of assess, you know, that there is a sound plan in place in terms of being able to kind of manage your finances. And if you are a new group, you can potentially provide a bank statement or a project budget. And then lastly, and really important, if your organization is working with children or vulnerable adults, and that's the nature of your application, that you're going to be working with those groups, you will be expected to have a safeguarding policy in place as well. Moving on to decision making. Okay, so the foundation doesn't actually make many of the decisions on most of the funds that we have. What we usually do is we convene an independent external grants panel, and that's usually made up of funders, donors, some of our partners and stakeholders. And really importantly, we also have community reps on the panel as well to ensure, you know, we have sufficient diversity and kind of that lived experience, knowledge and expertise onto our panels as well. So you'll find that on some of our panels, we'll also invite previous grant holders to come on and make decisions on grants as well. So that's kind of, you know, to ensure that we have the relevant experience and skills and expertise and understanding around a range of different local and strategic issues, you know, which would, you know, help us to make better and more informed decisions. And it's usually consensus decision making as well. So the panel would consider the application. So, you know, the grant officers and would actually present the actual applications as panel papers or recommendations. And then based on those recommendations, the decisions would be made by the panel, you know, considering things like, you know, what the fit is against the criteria, etc. And yeah, as the majority of our funds do tend to be heavily oversubscribed as well. But you know, we do try to ensure that we provide feedback to all applicants, regardless of whether you were successful or not. And that's recorded at the panel, and the panel views are kind of fed back as part of the feedback to the applicant as well. Okay. Next. And then the reporting and evaluation. So again, you will be asked to report on, you know, what you did with the money and how you got on in terms of your project. And you'll find the end of grant reporting template for each fund available on our website under the Our Grants section, Our Grants Monitoring section. And it, you know, it can vary from program to program in terms of how that is as well. And obviously we are very, very keen to learn about, you know, the impact that your project has had, and the learning as well, you know, what went well, what didn't go so well. So please don't try and airbrush out any of the stuff that you might think is, you know, didn't go too well, because that's still learning as well, and you won't be penalized for it. But it's useful to capture what you achieved, what you learned, what the outcomes were. Sometimes the outcomes are unanticipated as well. It's not just the ones that you planned at the beginning of the project. Things happen while you're delivering, and unexpected consequences and outcomes are generated. So it'd be useful to capture that impact as well, and make sure that you do build in sufficient costs towards this as well within your project budget, not just the delivery aspect, but how you're going to demonstrate and evidence the impact of your project as well. And you may wish to capture the impact of your project in creative ways as well. Some do as qualitative case studies, for examples. You might do a post and a pre kind of questionnaire as well, with or even a focus group with some of the beneficiaries. And you can kind of include those within your kind of, the reporting, any kind of quotes that you might have, photographs, video links, etc. We've just recently updated our resource library on our website, which is around the kind of monitoring and learning and evaluation. And Rachel's going to post the link for that. So, feel free to use any of those resources as well. Okay. And so we're going to come on now to the open and upcoming grant program. I'm going to hand over to Maria, who's going to start off with her program.
Thanks, Shahad. Right, so I'm going to give a brief overview of 4 different programs. So first up, we've got the Pears Youth Fund. This opens on the 25th of May, closes in July, and we anticipate successful grants will be awarded around September. This fund is very much about supporting third sector youth organisations in Leeds and Bradford, and all about kind of high quality youth work and promoting youth voice. It's worth pointing out that applicants need to be youth-focused organisations. So we appreciate that there are absolutely brilliant organisations out there that do much wider work with communities. But unfortunately, this fund is strictly focused on youth-focused organisations. So you might want to check your governing document and check that your objects align with that. We also prioritise applications from groups with an income below 500,000 in the most recent financial year. So full details are yet to be confirmed, so do keep an eye out on the Open Grants page on our website. But we anticipate that groups this year will be able to apply for either purely a contribution to overheads, so that's your kind of core costs to keep you running, or activity with young people, so projects, for example, or you can apply for a combination of both of those things. And grants are available of up to £10,000 over 1 year. And you'll notice that this fund has changed a little bit this year, and we will actually be welcoming applications from groups who are currently funded by this programme, but do contact us first if that applies to you, because we'll need an update on your current activity. Okay, so we'll move on to the Community Partnering Fund. This has also changed a little bit compared to previous rounds. And first of all, the main fund of this grant is now Northern Power Grid. And this year we're offering grants between £1,000 and £20,000 over 1 or 2 years. There are various regions that this fund can support, so it includes pretty much all of Yorkshire, but also beyond that. So again, check the detailed information when that is released. This one opens in June, closes in August, and decisions and awards will be circulated in October. The Community Partnering Fund is very much about supporting community organisations to broaden Northern Power Grid's reach and educate and support communities. And there are 3 themes this year. The first one is around alleviating hardship associated with fuel poverty, alongside looking at energy efficiency, carbon reduction, things like that. This can include kind of direct support for things like food and fuel vouchers, but it should be fully rounded. So it can't just be focused on that kind of financial support, but should also include things like training, signposting, anything that's going to better equip people and organisations to understand and manage energy use. The second theme is a new theme, and this is around supporting community hubs with crisis planning. So we're really interested in learning from organisations on this theme and hearing from you about what this might represent. So, for example, it might be about strengthening a community hub to better navigate things like adverse weather. So it might be putting plans and resources in place to cope with power cuts, for example. And the third theme for this one is about developing learning pathways and support in science, technology, engineering and maths, and also related careers. So it's worth pointing out that this one isn't just focused on children and young people, but the funder is really keen to support groups who might be considered underrepresented in related careers. So that might be women, people from minority ethnic backgrounds, and this, as I mentioned, covers a wide geographic area, so do check the information once it's released. And the funder is really keen to support applications who will be working with communities who might be considered vulnerable. So that might be financial hardship, it might be people with disabilities, other support needs, and they would like to see kind of lots of relevant signposting embedded in that delivery. So things like priority services membership and register. So we'll move on to the Sir Ken and Lady Morrison Fund. So this one covers Bradford, and grants are available of between £5,000 and £10,000 for 1 or 2 years. This fund opens in July, closes in September, and decisions will be communicated in early November. This fund is focused on building literacy, and we're keen to hear from people who are working in Bradford who are looking to explore different ways to engage and support young people, families, carers, anyone experiencing disadvantage who needs that support with reading and writing. So applicants need to be able to show that they're working with a particular community group or addressing a particular need. So not speculative, but maybe informed by some consultation or informed by other work that you do. And we're looking to fund practical projects that provide like real tangible impact. There are some examples on screen, but really we're keen to hear from organisations about your ideas. So there's an opportunity there for some quite creative responses to this fund. And it's worth pointing out that our usual criteria applying that we don't fund statutory work and statutory organisations, but if you're working in partnership with a school, for example, that's acceptable so long as the funded activity isn't duplicating or replacing activity that would normally be delivered by a school. So last one from me is Stay Well This Winter. The dates are to be confirmed, but we anticipate this one will open later in July, close in August, and awards will be made either late September or certainly so your activity can begin in October. This comes from Leeds City Council's Public Health Department, and it's really about helping organisations provide practical support around winter warmth and well-being. Again, there are some examples on screen, but it's worth pointing out that this isn't just about older people. So it might be support for people who are vulnerable due to illness, weather, and kind of perhaps isolated and need support with things like accessing food and prescriptions. It might be to support families with young children. We've certainly funded activity before where families have been identified as needing kind of direct help with things like clothing, warm clothing, bedding, curtains. It might be pregnant women, people with kind of ongoing health issues, people with disabilities and low-income families, and of course older people who might be especially frail or have other vulnerabilities. There are grants of between 500 and 2,500 available from that fund, and that would cover a 6-month period, so delivery would end in March 2023. Right, thank you, and I'm going to hand over to Lydia now.
Thank you, Maria. So I'm going to talk about 4 upcoming funds that will be open over the summer. The first of those being the Leeds Fund Microgrants. So this fund is not yet open, but it does operate on a quarterly cycle, meaning that it is regularly open throughout the year, and you'll have multiple opportunities to apply. It will next be open in July, and will accept applications throughout the month, and the round will then close on Friday the 29th of July at 12 noon, which is the last working day of the month. So the Leeds Fund Microgrants are very small pots of funding with a broad general focus, and importantly, they are targeted at and support individuals and small unconstituted voluntary groups only. So unconstituted means that the group do not have a document explaining how they run, and instead they will be an informal community-led format, but they must be an independent group. We target these groups so that our funding is accessible to and will reach small community initiatives that make a positive difference. Microgrants are available to Leeds-based groups only, and the grants are up to £500. Proposals for funding must demonstrate that they improve the lives of the people in their communities through volunteer-led activities that make a positive difference. And as such, this fund is not very prescriptive and doesn't have a specific focus. We believe that you will know best what is needed in your community, and so we welcome applications to support all different members of the community. So your work could be with children and young people, families, older people, members of the LGBTQIA+ community, refugees and asylum seekers, communities experiencing racial inequity, and disabled people. So we're looking to support a whole range of different communities. And similarly, a range of activities can be funded, and often these projects will be linked to things like health and wellness, or providing enriching experiences for local residents, or building safe and friendly communities, and activity that's based around learning and skill building. So a few ideas of activities that could be funded might include activities to address physical and mental health, such as a local support group that helps local residents get out and about and exercise, or activities that encourage learning and could, for example, support people in gaining life skills and employability skills, or even creative solutions to local issues, such as an arts and craft group that uses reclaimed materials destined for landfill to make new items, and bringing members of the community together to both improve social connections whilst also looking after the environment. So of course, this isn't an exhaustive list, and we really do welcome new and creative ideas. So the next fund is the Leeds Digital Inclusion Fund. So the Leeds Digital Inclusion Fund is a totally new fund for Leeds Community Foundation, and is currently scheduled to open on Monday the 30th of May, at which point the full fund information will be available on our website. And at the moment it's scheduled to close to applications on Monday the 4th of July at 12 noon. So this one will be open throughout June. This fund is targeted at Leeds-based groups only. And at the moment, the grant size is not confirmed, but we do anticipate grants to be around 5,000 to 10,000, but this will be confirmed and highlighted in the fund criteria on the website soon. These grants will fund the development and use of sustainable interventions which support digital inclusion in Leeds. Grants are open to charitable groups working in varied settings and contexts and with different communities. So the fund does not have a specific focus on a demographic or type of service delivery. However, applicants will need to demonstrate that as part of your standard everyday work, you can promote the benefits of being online. You will upskill people with essential digital skills and enable online access. This might be by providing equipment or software or training. So whilst applicants can work with varied communities, they must clearly demonstrate how they have identified digitally excluded people in their communities, and as part of the application, make it clear and explain how you know that these people struggle to access online spaces. For example, your service users may not be contactable outside of in-person sessions because they don't have access to a phone or the internet. And importantly, grants should be used to strengthen your organisation's internal capacity and sustainability. This means that the grant money will build upon your everyday work by improving and integrating digital access and skills into your everyday offer. So as such, you might use money to pay staff to implement a new digital inclusion initiative. However, it's important to note that grants will not be awarded to short-term time-limited projects, which basically means a course of, say, 10 skills building sessions on how to use the internet. But you might use your grant to instead invest in digital equipment or connectivity that can be used across all your services, or maybe you will establish a self-sustaining digital skills support session by maybe paying staff to oversee a peer support system or to oversee a continual volunteer-led drop-in training sort of activity session. And it's important that grants will help communities be independently active online for the long term, and the application should demonstrate how your proposal will do that. And just to note that there will be an online webinar likely to be in around mid-June, which will be specifically for this fund, and there will be a broader Q&A session within this for potential applicants to ask specific questions and understand more fully what this fund will support. And there'll also be some support available with applications, and all of the information and details about how you can access this, the support and the webinar will be included in the criteria, which will be on the website soon. So the next one is the AWC Community Health Grants. So this stands for the Airedale, Wharfdale and Craven Community Health Grants. And this will open for applications on Monday, the 27th of June. And the deadline to apply will be Thursday, the 28th of July at 12 noon. This fund is a development and continuation of our previous fund, the Keighley Community Health Grants. And as such, it does have a very similar criteria and objectives for those who are aware of and have previously applied to this programme. The main difference now being that it's been extended to cover a wider geographic area, which is the Airedale, Wharfdale and Craven district. And so it will be open to more groups in West Yorkshire. The grant size and timeframe varies, and there are 2 levels of grant available. So there are Kickstart grants, which are £500 to £5,000 for 1 year of activity. And then there are also development grants, which are slightly larger and are £5,000 to £15,000 per year for up to 2 years of funded activity. Funding can support pilot projects and startup costs, or contribute to expanding or developing your current enterprising activity. The Kickstart funding rather, can be used to carry out research, to set up a pilot or feasibility study, and to access expertise or consultancy or any other activity that helps you develop your initial ideas further. And then the development funding is for more established health and wellbeing initiatives, which are capable of being delivered on a sustainable basis. So funding is available to a range of groups with different structures, but if you are applying for a development grant, which is the slightly larger one, you must have been established for at least 2 years with a proven track record in the local area. So these grants will be awarded to groups who can help build a community-led health offer in Airedale, Wharfdale and Craven, which will improve the health and well-being of local people by providing successful and well-connected social prescribing initiatives to engage people in holistic health solutions. So social prescribing refers local people from NHS agencies to community groups where they can take part in activities which will provide practical and emotional support within a community setting. And grants will support this process by increasing accessibility, collaboration, and general services that are available. Grants can be used to fund a wide range of activities, and the criteria won't be restrictive. The key things that your application need to demonstrate are A, how your activities will improve the health and well-being of people in the AWC area, and also how the grant will support your organisation to engage with local NHS providers and social prescribers, so that the grant programme creates a joined up community health offer. And again, full information about this fund will be publicised on the website in June. So the final fund that I'll talk about now is the Manjit Wolstenholme Fund. So the Manjit Wolstenholme Fund will open for applications on Monday the 1st of August, and the deadline to apply will be the 30th of September. So this one is coming up a bit later at the end of the summer. These grants are available to Bradford-based groups only, and grants of between £5,000 and £10,000 will be awarded. The Manjit Wolstenholme Fund supports community groups who work with and support children and young people in disadvantaged areas of Bradford District, enabling these young people to achieve their potential through educational and aspirational opportunities. Established in memory of Manjit Wolstenholme, who was the first woman from an ethnic minority background to chair a FTSE 100 company, this fund focuses on building skills and perseverance and aims to break down actual and perceived barriers that prohibit young people from succeeding in business. So as such, grant proposals and projects should increase educational, training and employment opportunities that are available for young people in Bradford. Your activities should enable young people to make informed choices about their next steps in education and learning, and dispel misconceptions about what is achievable and possible. Activities should be focused on young people up to the age of 21, and also can work with their parents, carers, family members and key influencers working directly with young people and their families. So some examples of past activity that has been funded include a programme of youth-led sessions exploring confidence building, creating successful relationships and healthy living. Also, a series of educational STEM sessions, widening understanding and participation in STEM subjects in higher education. STEM meaning science, technology, engineering and maths. And also a programme of talks from successful Asian female role models, with groups visiting local universities and colleges so that young people can experience and be inspired to study at higher education level. So all proposals should demonstrate how they are delivering aspirational youth-focused work. And again, the full information about the fund will be on the website when it's open in August. So that's mine. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Alex now.
Thanks, Lydia. So I'll be talking about the last 4 programmes we have open and upcoming. So the first one is the Bradford Fund microgrants. So these grants are between 500 and 2,500 across 1 year. The funding is designed to cover organisational costs to enable groups to take time away from their normal delivery and kind of focus on strategic development work. The aim of this is to provide kind of support to build longer term resilience across groups in Bradford. The funding can help groups to kind of reflect on their successes, unpick some challenges that they might be facing, identify, priority areas for development. It could be articulating a set of values or developing a mission statement, for example, undertaking a governance review, or even diversifying their funding model. So it's really looking at kind of, the organisational structures that are currently in place rather than project work. The grant is also unrestricted, so that best enables groups to kind of use it as they need to. Each group will need at least 1 paid or 1 volunteer member of staff who can commit a proportion of their time to this programme. We're looking to open this fund in June, but the exact date will be confirmed nearer the time. Next slide, please. Great, thank you. So the next fund is the Maguire Arts Education Fund. These grants are up to £10,000 for 2 years. The focus on the fund is arts education, so looking specifically at activities that kind of boost well-being, especially post-pandemic, how the arts can invoke happiness and creativity, and also it could also focus on kind of extracurricular arts, so kind of the promotion of arts, increasing soft skills such as communication and networking, and also can look into arts focus work due to kind of curriculum changes as well. These types of activities between those 2 areas could also be kind of running kind of arts courses, developing training, visits to arts institutions, and it's looking to support organisations that work with young people up to the age of 20. We do have an extensive list of what we've defined as arts, which is on our criteria document on the website, but it can include visual arts, theatre, music, digital arts, dance. It can be pretty much anything, but yeah, please do check the criteria document for what we've outlined, and anything that isn't on that list, please do contact us. Can we discuss it further? The grant can also be used for project costs or core costs, or a combination of both as well, but please do just specify what it is you're applying for within the application itself. The fund is currently open, and the deadline for this is the 8th of June at 12 noon. Then next slide, please. Thank you. So the third fund is the Flint Family Fund. These grants between 2,500 and 5,000 for 1 year projects, and 5,000 to 10,000 for 2 year projects. The fund aims to support organisations working with children and young people to increase their literacy or numeracy, or kind of using sport and physical activity in general to raise aspirations and kind of boost health and well-being, especially looking in the impact of COVID-19. Types of activities that could be funded. You could, run sports leadership programs, social action, homework clubs and reading programs. This is obviously not an extensive list. The grant can be used for project costs, or it can cover core costs as well, or again, could be a mixture of both. The fund will open in September, but yeah, the exact date hasn't been yet confirmed. And the last slide, please. Thank you. So the last fund is the trauma-informed work in communities. These are grants up to £20,000 for 2 years. The fund is part of a wider Future in Mind strategy, aiming to improve kind of the emotional and mental health of young people across Leeds. They aim to do this by kind of boosting protective factors of children and young people who've experienced or are at risk of experiencing adversity and trauma. This could be related to domestic abuse, mental health issues, substance abuse, racial inequity. The work will need to kind of be trauma informed, and we've got a link in the criteria document we'll do relating to kind of what this approach actually means. But it's taking a learned approach to the work that you'd be doing to promote strong and healthy relationships through a variety of activities, which could be teaching about relationship skills, it could be peer support groups, and just generally promoting positive and supportive environments for children and young people, and also their families. The majority of the funding will need to be spent on project costs, but up to 10% can be on core costs. In addition, groups will be kind of expected to work with the Community Champions Network, that is part of Forum Central, and facilitated by them. The fund is going to be opening on the 6th of June, and the deadline is the 20th of July at 12 noon. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've got time for a couple of questions. So, Rachel, if you want to stop sharing the slide, and then we've got a few questions in the chat, which I think the staff have already answered, but if there are any questions, fire away. No? Oh, great. Looks like we've answered all the questions in the presentation. That's really cool. Okay, that just leaves me to say thanks very much for your time and attending. I think Rachel's sending out these polls. I would be really grateful if you guys can take 2 seconds just to kind of complete that poll for her. That would be really, really great. And just thank you for your time and interest, and we really look forward to receiving your grant applications. And if there are any questions, do get in touch with the team. You can kind of talk to us about your project. If you've got any concerns about your project, then give us a bell. And the slides and the presentation will be shared with everybody after the event as well. Okay. Thank you very much.